By the time 2005 rolled around, Triple H was the last of a crop of megastars from the Attitude Era still in WWE full-time. Stone Cold Steve Austin was trying to get started in Hollywood, The Rock was already in Hollywood full-time, and becoming one of the most famous actors in the world. Mick Foley was on again, off again, Undertaker was on SmackDown, and so on and so forth. For the better part of 3 years, Triple H had been the leader of his faction, Evolution. He was with Ric Flair, Randy Orton, and Batista. Triple H in the mid-2000s was also in the middle of an infamous reign of terror, just cutting 25-minute promos to start off Raw every week, and the WWE audience was clamoring for a new star to cheer. WWE had tried with Chris Benoit and Randy Orton, which was just terrible. I mean, you had Randy Orton jumping out of birthday cakes, attacking Triple H and strippers, and yeah. Regardless, as a kid, Triple H was my guy. He was my favorite on Raw. I cheered for him in 2002 against Jericho, 03-04 in his feud with HBK, and then of course in 06 I cheered for him against John Cena as well, like most other adult fans, even though I was a kid. I still wanted Triple H over Cena. It was weird. I guess I just didn't click with Cena, really, for the majority of his career. Nevertheless, enter Batista. For majority of Evolution's run, Batista had been in the background. He was an integral part, but WWE clearly wanted to build Randy Orton as the next guy. Batista floated in the mid-card, teaming with Ric Flair and being Triple H's muscle. Batista got tired of the way Triple H was treating him, and after the Royal Rumble 05, an all-time great rivalry was born after Batista won the 05 Rumble. One of the most iconic Rumbles of all time. It's synonymous for a botched finish. Cena and Batista's feet both hit the ground at the same time, and then Vince McMahon ran to the ring, and he entered the ring and tore both his quads. An iconic Vince moment, to be honest. Now, let's talk about just what makes this rivalry so iconic. The simplicity of it all was so beautiful. After Batista won the Royal Rumble, Triple H began to convince Batista to challenge the SmackDown champion, who was JBL. Batista then half-jokingly said, "What if I challenge you?" or something along those lines, to which Triple H nervously laughed off. The story of Triple H and Batista was one of the master versus the protege. Triple H knew in his heart of hearts that he could not beat Batista, as Batista was fresher and stronger than him. So he tried his damnedest to get Batista to challenge JBL at WrestleMania. He even tried to get Batista not to enter the Royal Rumble, which Batista did anyway. Batista had a feeling that Triple H was holding him down and began to take note of it. This came to a head when Batista overheard the other Evolution members plotting to run Batista over with JBL's limo. Triple H really did not want to face Dave Batista. All this did was make Batista look even more like a threat than he already did. In my opinion, this is one of the ways that you make stars. Batista came off like he was on Triple H's level. Batista was able to hang with and intimidate a legitimate star. Too often today, we see the younger wrestling stars look inferior to older, more established names. However, this was not the case in 2005. Batista, upon overhearing Triple H's plan to take him out, decided to turn his attention to Triple H. When Batista made his decision of who he was going to face at WrestleMania 21, he started to sign a contract for SmackDown, signaling a thumbs up to Triple H and Flair, and he quickly did the thumbs down. It's a pretty iconic moment in my opinion on Raw, at least from my childhood. This is an iconic moment when Batista does the thumb down. Triple H was just so good as a heel. He sold it perfectly. His facial expressions, of course, along with Flair's, were just phenomenal. Then at WrestleMania 21, the two, they fought in the main event. And they delivered on the match, and this match has been universally praised as one of the greatest main events in WrestleMania history. This was textbook 101 wrestling storytelling, and it's a blueprint for how to get wrestlers over. Triple H put Batista over clean, going against the narrative that he buries everyone. The two had a physical brawl-style match that had great psychology and told a great story. Batista closed out WrestleMania 21, which at the time was the highest grossing WrestleMania and wrestling pay-per-view period of all time. In the biggest WrestleMania at the time, in the biggest market in the world, in Hollywood, California, Batista was born. This WrestleMania became famous for featuring the crowning moments of both John Cena and Dave Batista's career. Batista closed the biggest WrestleMania of all time, holding the big gold belt, and he was an ideal champion, looking like a badass coming out in a suit and sunglasses every week on Raw. The story with Triple H did not stop there, as the two met not once but twice more after this. The first was at a rematch at Backlash, which Triple H was owed since he was the previous champion. Nothing really crazy, complicated story here. Batista won the match clean, and I would argue that this is the least memorable of their matches in 05. And then lastly, in their final encounter, they met at Vengeance 05. The story here was simple. Triple H attacked Batista from behind after Batista had a match defending his title. and he got his heat back. Textbook WWE. The heel beats up the babyface comes back to fight for their honor. The only way to settle the score in this personal story was a Hell in a Cell match, 3 years in the making. Triple H had never lost a Hell in a Cell match prior. That's a key stat to hold on to. They had an iconic Hell in a Cell match which Batista won. They both were a bloody mess. This match was awesome and is regarded as one of the all-time great Hell in a Cell matches. Pre-PG Hell in a Cell matches were a sight to behold, and quite frankly, we all took them for granted. We had sledgehammers flying everywhere, guys were getting slammed through the cell, getting thrown off cells, like that. It was just a different time, pre-PG. Batista defeated Triple H at Vengeance, meaning that he beat the Burial Machine clean at 3 straight pay-per-views, which was unheard of at the time. Triple H did lose. He lost to people. He wasn't actually a burial machine, aside from that one time with Booker T. Other than that, Triple H had no problem losing, but it's still funny to just poke fun at the narrative. Still, Triple H losing at 3 straight pay-per-views was simply unheard of, and Batista became a made man and would later be drafted to SmackDown to carry that brand. This rivalry featured a good, easy-to-follow story leading up to WrestleMania, and it had the right guy win the right way. There were no shenanigans, interference, or nothing like that. The WrestleMania 21 win for Batista was a great payoff to a great story. After Vengeance 2005, Triple H vs. Batista was already an all-time great rivalry. Then, in 2018, rumors started swirling that Batista was coming back for one more match. Batista had hinted at wanting to go out against the best, his mentor and best friend Triple H, at WrestleMania 35, and he would get just his wish. At SmackDown 1000 in 2018, in a bit of an odd moment, Evolution reunited. It was weird since they never appeared on SmackDown during their prime, they were always on Raw. Nevertheless, a seemingly nervous Batista cut an interesting promo and then later turned on Triple H saying, "There is nothing Triple H has not done in this business except beat me." End quote. Making it known he had his sights set on Triple H. The rivalry was reborn when Triple H and Batista began on the road to WrestleMania 35. Again, the story here, this match, nothing really spectacular. The added wrinkle of Triple H's career on the line if he lost the match took a little bit of the oof off of it. But, I mean, we still got a famous moment. The most famous moment being Batista shouting, "Give me what I want!" which is now a staple in wrestling memes and is an anthem of many entitled fans on wrestling Twitter. The two engaged in a very long, seemingly never-ending match at WrestleMania 35, which at the end of it became one of the better matches, if not the best match on the show. The two showed that they still had it and delivered a textbook wrestling clinic. Triple H won the match, thus ending Batista's career. I think that was the last time we will ever see Dave Batista in a wrestling ring, which is a shame because he was not always treated the best by fans, especially in 2014, which that's another topic for another day. This was as fitting of an end to a career as you could possibly get. Losing to your mentor at WrestleMania and riding off into the sunset to make movies and TV shows? It really doesn't get any better than that. WrestleMania 35 was the cap to an all-time great rivalry. It was 14 years after their first WrestleMania encounter, and it's safe to say that if that is the last ever WrestleMania match for both men, they went out on a high note. Just a brief recap. Triple H versus Batista, in my opinion, is one of the most crucial rivalries of the Ruthless Aggression era. Like, there was some good rivalries, especially in 05. You had Cena and JBL, you had Eddie and Ray, you had Batista and Triple H, you had Randy Orton and Undertaker. 05 was a great year for wrestling. But Batista and Triple H, you could argue, is the most important rivalry of that year. And again, I just want to harp on the simplicity, man. That's what makes this WrestleMania rivalry so great. A lot of times, just WrestleMania matches are so overthought. Like, I think of the one versus all match between Roman and Triple H and that Royal Rumble storyline. Just overthought. There's really no reason for it. This was simple. Batista was in a faction with Triple H. Triple H was scared that the new guy was going to be better than him. And eventually, the new guy was better than Triple H. And Batista became a star for years to years and come. And he's still a big star in the mainstream media. So a lot of that is due to Triple H and his unselfishness. And yeah, this caps off what I think is one of the best rivalries in wrestling history. Thank you all so much for watching and have a great day.
Viva la raza! I lie, I cheat, I steal. I lie, I cheat, I steal. Yo, mamacita, I got that passion that's lasting long. Los mujeres fall in love with that Latin charm. One woman isn't enough, amigo. Siempre cogiendo.